dear Little Salty Homesteader, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back today with another weekly update. There is quite a bit of insect damage happening out here in the garden, so let's go see what's going on and how maybe I can possibly try to get it under control. All right, sticking with tradition, we're starting over here in the tomato patch, and we're gonna start back here with the determinate tomatoes, and I'll show you the first area of insect damage, which you're going to see repeated throughout the tomato patch because it has been a fierce battle this year. So if you look here, you can see where leaves got nibbled, kind of stripped pretty baldly there. We have some fruits that were gnawed into, and what I have been battling really terribly is actually hornworms. What I have seen 99% of the time is tobacco hornworms, which we have. You know, that's something that I struggle with every year, but this year seems to be exponentially horrible for whatever reason. I believe that my current count is at 14 hornworms found across the tomatoes and pepper plants. So hopefully it slows down soon. Otherwise, I'm just gonna have to keep, you know, picking them off as I see them and kind of hoping for the best. You can see on this plant where it just went ham before I saw it and got rid of it. So the way that I don't like to touch them because they're squirmy and it grosses me out. So I just kind of pinch off whatever branch I find them on and then just throw that whole branch in the garbage. Yesterday I chunked one over the fence because I didn't have the trash cans back on the patio because it was trash day. So, you know, it is what it is. You can see we are starting to get a bit of blight issues as that happens with tomatoes here in North Texas every year because it is a very humid climate. It's kind of a hard battle to kind of deal with. So I actually need to come out here and prune again. The tomatoes that are up against the house are especially susceptible because they don't have as much airflow as these tomatoes over here. So I need to do a better job at staying on top of it. But you can see that we do have a lot of tomatoes themselves growing, which I'm going to try my best to show you guys. So kind of all the way down, we have tomatoes everywhere. Back at this end, the issue that I'm facing here is spider mites, and you can't really, let's see if I can put these gnawed up tomatoes down and show you guys kind of what that might look like. All right, so I'm going to attempt to zoom in and hope that it focuses. All right, so you see all of those little teeny tiny specks. You might even be able to see some crawling. Those are spider mites. Typically, the best way to deal with them without any sort of chemical processes is a high pressure water hose. I actually have not watered this bed in quite a while, so that could be part of the reason why they're pretty bad here. They typically like it whenever it's kind of dry out, but they don't like the high pressure water. So if I consistently spray these branches for, say, a week in a row, that will really get this back under control and we'll see substantially less damage. Something that you can do if you want to go the chemical route is make an insecticidal spray using Castile soap, like Dr. Bronner's Castile soap, and some water, and then just come out here and saturate the leaves really well on the tops and the bottoms of the leaves, and that will do a couple of things. One, it will suffocate what's on there, and two, it creates a coating so that new spider mites or even squash bugs or other insects can't like penetrate into the plants themselves. You will have to reapply that regularly, especially after it rains or something like that, but it is a good effective method for dealing with spider mites. You can see that onion tops are laying down now. So tomorrow, the kids and I are going to be harvesting these red onions, and we'll do the same thing that we did with the yellow onion harvest. We'll weigh out each side, count out how many onions there are, give a final total, kind of our assessment of the experiment, because just as a refresher, this side here is the control side. We didn't do anything to them, just regular water and fertilizer. And then this side we topped, meaning we cut them to where they're pretty short to the bed. So you can see where some like new greenery came up from the middle of these, but for the most part the tops are pretty short, and they're all starting to lay down as well. So the kids and I will get these harvested and weighed out tomorrow, and then zucchini is going into this bed. The peppers in this bed are doing really well. So we have a ton of Buena Mulata. Ooh, I want to show you guys this one. I didn't see this morning. So okay, so Buena Mulata, this is one of our favorite peppers because it's purple as it grows, first of all, but as it ripens, it kind of goes through this whole colors of the sunset thing where it turns kind of peachy and then orange and then kind of all the way through until it reaches the red, fully ripe stage. It is in the cayenne family, so it has the same flavor profile and heat characteristics as a cayenne. It's just, you know, different because it's purple. The nasturtiums are going to start fizzling out because it is heating up quite a lot. I think today is going to be 90. Nasturtium really doesn't like super hot temperatures. So probably in about 2 weeks, it'll be time to just remove these and think about what else we can put here as like a summer heat tolerant flower in its place. The calendula is still doing okay. It doesn't really like hot temperatures either, but I don't see it slowing down. So we're gonna hold on to that as long as we can. The other peppers that we have in this bed outside of the Buena Mulata, we have other cayennes. We have this hybrid variety called Arapaho, and look how big that Mama Jamma gets. These guys get humongous. And then we have further down, we have habanero down here. So you can see, if I can get to them, there are habaneros growing. There is a Carolina Reaper in here somewhere, but it's kind of jungly. And then we have Thai red chilies here. And there's a ton of little Thai red chili peppers on there. So lots of hot peppers growing on this aisle. I have not seen hornworms in these pepper plants, just the couple of tomato plants that I pointed out. All right, we're gonna start at this end. Gonna do it a little differently. So the issue that I'm battling on this end, again, is the spider mites. I did spray this yesterday with the high pressure water hose. I have not done it yet today. There's rain in the forecast, so I'm kind of, you know, holding out to see if it's going to rain. Although, if I want to guarantee the rain, then I should go ahead and water, right? Because that's how that works. You can see nasturtiums. There's still a lot of green and a lot of flowers, but it is starting to fizzle out and look a little bit ugly. We do have a lot of the blue-green Wagner tomatoes growing, even though the plant itself looks pretty terrible from spider mites. The fruits look decent. And then we have Black Beauty growing over here. Again, this plant has a lot of spider mite damage as well, but it is still growing and setting fruit. So I have pulled one hornworm from over here, but that's the only hornworm, mostly spider mites here. Now, these are the Juliet tomatoes, and you can see they form nice cute little clusters of tomatoes. These are an indeterminate variety, supposed to be relatively heat tolerant, so we'll see how they do as the temperatures continue to climb. We're reaching the end of May, so in June we may see our, you know, regular 100-degree temperatures. So we'll see what happens with these guys. Now this plant right here with the relatively decent sized tomatoes in the midst of the jungle, this is Super Sue, and this is a more acidic flavor profile, and I like to use this one for salsa because I don't like it whenever my salsa is too sweet, because it's really hard to make it spicy enough whenever it's more sweet than acidic. This one works really well as an acidic salsa type tomato. So that's why I have this here, and it's doing pretty good. You can see tomatoes going pretty high on the plant, and it's a relatively short plant. I do need to come out here and prune. As you can see, there are some blight issues, but overall doing decent. Okay, so then we get into the porter tomato, and I don't know, it looks like it might finally be starting to bloom. This one is more of a later producer because this is the most heat tolerant variety that I have in the garden this year. This one produced well into the summer for me, so that was why I grew it again, and I picked 100 million tomatoes off of the porter plant last year, it seemed like. And these two, I believe, also have spider mite damage. You can see how the leaves are kind of speckled looking. If you feel them, they feel kind of like sandpaper. That's another good indicator if you can't really see the tiny spider mites on them. But you can see we have quite a few of the Darth Vader tomatoes on here. So that's pretty exciting. These actually get bigger than I thought they were going to, because there's one right there. So I'll be really stoked to see how big these are once they start to get ripe. All right, now we'll go around to the front of this bed. You can see the middle is quite empty now. All of the onions were harvested out. They're over on the patio curing so I can get them inside, but we planted yellow patty pan squash seeds in their place. I have some radish that has germinated. I planted white icicle radish around the squash seeds to try to help prevent squash bug infestation. Supposedly it helps. We'll see. But we have serranos down at this end, and these are the serranos that get like super long. Here we go. You can see how long these guys get. And then more serranos, and then we start to get into jalapenos. Pretty much from here to the end is all different types of jalapenos. So most of these look pretty good. They're growing the way that they're supposed to be growing. We have nasturtiums, we have basil, we have marigolds. This one had a big fat hornworm on it yesterday. You can see the damage to the plant where it just ate all the leaves, but I think it stayed away from all the peppers unless it ate them completely. So I'm not even seeing them on here. I think it avoided the peppers themselves, so that's pretty cool. Then we have, oh yeah, so I pointed out that we planted the yellow patty pan in this bed. We planted seeds in 3 places, so hopefully we have 3 plants that will grow in here. And then of course any of the icicle radish that hopefully germinates and even more hopefully helps prevent squash bugs. Over here we have cherry tomatoes. This is where I have identified the most hornworms, probably because it's in the easiest for flying creatures to get to, because it's the front bed and you know they can just zoom right through, deposit their eggs, and keep on a trucking. Lily has been helping me harvest the cherry tomatoes, so you probably don't see very many out here that are starting to get ripe, because every single day she is on it. She wants to come out and she wants to get all of the tomatoes that are starting to get ripe. I am seeing a bit of spider mite problems, and then of course the blight issues that we deal with. Cherry tomatoes are pretty resilient against both, but I will come out with the high pressure water hose and try to blast off as many spider mites as I can, and then of course prune as much of the blight as I can. This one is the Super Sweet 100, and they're kind of starting to ripen. They kind of ripen in onesies and twosies. There's not like a whole cluster that gets ripe at once. Same thing with these Sun Sugar, and then this one is the Sun Gold. So far the Sun Gold has been the one that we've harvested the most of, and it has been the one that has tasted the best so far. We haven't tasted tomatoes from all the plants yet for us to, you know, for me to say for sure this one was the best tasting one, but so far it is. Then we have Sakura, I believe. maybe? I can't remember. The curse of growing so many varieties. I think it's Sakura. And then we have my Papa's cherry tomato plant, which kind of grows in 7 different directions at one time. That's this one. And it is usually super prolific, and they're a larger variety of cherry tomato. And then we have Midnight Snack. We have one inside that's ripe, one that Lily harvested yesterday, and it looks like if we get some sunshine, she'll have a couple more that she can get today. And then we have the cream of the crop Sunset Torch F1 hybrid. We've harvested several of these as well, and it looks like she'll get to harvest a couple here. And oh, now you can see, looks like she'll get to harvest a couple there, possibly some there if we get some sunshine today. And then on the very end is the Sun Green 4029. Look, here's where hornworms ate some of these. I pulled that hornworm off. He's not on here anymore, but yeah, it's been a battle. So you can see the damage here. We have not had any ripe Sun Green 4029 yet, and these are a bit bigger than I thought they were gonna be, but they're starting to soften up. So Lily might be able to harvest today or tomorrow on those, and then we'll be able to do a taste test and sample all the different varieties of cherry tomatoes that we've harvested this year. Coming around to this side, it is really wild. The tomatillos are just kind of sprawling in all different directions. I need to run more trellis through here to give them a bit of support, because as you can see, these plants are super loaded down. They're so heavy that the branches are breaking. So yeah, that branch is about to break completely off. But you can see there's probably, I don't know, 200 tomatillos here growing. So this is the Grande Rio Verde tomatillo. So if you want one that might be prolific, I think this is the one. So you can see there's just a zillion. And then we have a pickle bush cucumber. This bad boy is blooming like crazy. Hopefully with all the ants and stuff I've seen, we're able to get some pollination happening. The dill is smelling amazing. Oh man, that's such a great smell. And then we have some ugly grasshoppers right there, if you can see them. We have the Thanos eggplant. I still haven't harvested that guy. I'm trying to wait and see if he's gonna get any bigger. But we have another one here. And then Listada di Giandia there, and Shooting Stars there, I believe. Back here we have some bush beans, and these are just about done. I can come through and harvest the rest of these beans and go ahead and pull these plants and get this spot ready to plant one of my varieties of cowpeas in, and then get those rocking and rolling. There's no more blooms on these beans. Pretty much whatever's left on there is all that there's going to be. So there's a few left that, yeah, can be harvested, and then we'll just move on with the next crop for this space. So believe it or not, hornworms will also eat tomatillos. There was a big hornworm on here that I saw, and it was like bigger than my finger. It was massive. And you can see the damage here that it did. This variety is just the Verde tomatillo, so just your basic green. And while I do have a few tomatillos growing, it doesn't seem to be as prolific as the ones down there. So if you're trying to plant one for mega consumption, maybe consider the Grande Rio Verde. I don't know if this one is bad yet. Maybe it just starts producing later and it's gonna start kicking some major booty too. So I don't want to talk bad about this one because the season's not over yet. But you can see we have a tomatillo there. I mean, they're blooming like crazy. We just don't have as much fruit set just yet. We have one more pickle bush cucumber down here, and it's starting to bloom. Now, these pickle bush are going to stay more compact. They're not long and vining. or not as vining as other varieties of cucumber. That's why these are kind of small and blooming and trying to give me cucumbers. So if you need like a space-saving variety, maybe pickle bush would work for you. Outside of the spider mites and the hornworms, this area is doing pretty darn good. There's a lot of food that's growing, and I know that it's hard to see from this jungly view, but we're going to be very well fed from these beds for several months. So even though I'm having to come through and pick off pests like crazy, it's still doing its job. So thank you, garden. Now we get into these raised beds, what I am referring to as the okra patch. If you have watched any of the other weekly updates, you will know that these beds have been a bit of a struggle for me this year. However, I think things are turning around. The issue that I believe I was facing was nitrogen lock from compost that hadn't broken down enough. So I've been out here applying nitrogen fertilizer like crazy. I do a liquid fish emulsion fertilizer every Monday, and then I do a slow release granulated Fox Farms tomato and vegetable fertilizer every other Monday, and then I'm also applying earthworm castings every Monday as well. The results are really starting to show. Now when I started this, none of this basil was growing. It was still, you know, like very much seedling size, maybe like this tall. And you can see where I have been cutting it off to use it because we have pizza every Friday, and it's growing. Peppers, there's a ton of like new leaf growth. They're much greener than they were. This basil is becoming like an awesome basil bush over here. The biggest, most noticeable difference in the growth is going to be the squash plants. So there's 3 in each bed. The 2 that are in the middle sections in this bed are doing absolutely wonderful. There's a ton of new leaves. It's super green, really vibrant. It's really starting to put on, you know, a ton of height, much bigger than it was even 2 weeks ago, even 1 week ago. Another thing that is happening is the bush beans in this bed are starting to roll in. I harvested some a couple of days ago and some yesterday, but you can see we have some more. There's still blooms, so we probably have another week and a half worth of harvest of bush beans out of this bed. This is the purple TP variety, if I'm not mistaken. The rest of the bush beans in this bed are dragon tongue, and I have harvested a few, although these seem to be a little bit behind those in terms of blooming and producing. But you can see we got some little baby dragon tongue beans there. Some that are like teenager-ish, and then some that are ready to harvest. So bush beans doing pretty well. This squash is doing pretty well. This one is going to be a vining variety, so it's gonna start, you know, kind of trailing down the bed, which is perfectly fine. After the bush beans in this bed are done blooming and producing, more cowpeas are gonna go here. We also have okra in here. Where is that plant? I just saw it. So right here we have okra. This one's still a little small, but we have several plants all the way down the bed. There's 7 different varieties of okra in total between the 2 beds. And thanks to all of the fertilizer and the temperatures warming up, these are finally starting to grow a good amount. So calendula is looking good here. Marigolds are finally looking good. They've looked a little sad there for a little while. More basil. The dill is looking good. What else do we have in here? This is a Malabar spinach. I expect it to really start taking off in June, whenever it starts to get stupid hot. These are a green noodle bean. Then we have a Thai butterfly pea flower here and there. That was an accidental seed that I'm just letting grow. This is a Hamey melon. That is a partial eclipse squash. Let me come up over here. So if you watched the video last week, it didn't even have that leaf on it. It just had those. So it is finally trying to put on new leaves. For whatever reason, this part of the bed has really been a bigger struggle than the rest. So I kind of gave this end a little bit more attention whenever I did the liquid fertilizer and the earthworm castings this week, which you can kind of see all my earthworm castings that I'm just depositing everywhere. Oops. Sunflowers. Now these are still putting on some height. They are starting to form flower heads and putting on height. Looks like the aphid problem is a bit better. I don't know if a ladybug came and just went to Chowtown, but that makes me happy because last week these leaves were kind of covered in aphids. We got a flower head there. We have flower heads there. These are a later addition because what was originally planted here did not germinate. So these will probably bloom first, then these, and then these. So we'll kind of have like a trailing show of flowers, which is really cool. After they're all fizzled out, I'll just throw more seeds in there because we have a long season. So they'll have enough time to grow and bloom still. This bed, as you can see, there's quite a bit more leafy stuff happening in this one. I don't think that the nitrogen lock issue was as bad in this bed as it was in the other bed, which is interesting because they have the exact same soil. But you can see that these bush beans are quite a bit more full and fluffy than the other ones. You can see that this partial eclipse squash is substantially farther along. It is starting to bloom. Typically the male blooms come first and then the female blooms will happen. And if you don't have a good pollinator population coming through, you can always manually populate them by taking the male flower and basically sticking that part into the middle of the female flower and kind of, you know, plant mating. But along the trellis here, this side has really been a struggle. We do have Kajari melon right here, and then we have a red noodle bean here. Now the Hostinator cucumber has not grown beyond that point. Malabar spinach, I think a roly-poly keeps nibbling at it. And then that dragon's egg cucumber, I have no idea what happened. It just kind of fizzled up one day and now it is gone. So no idea. Each bed is getting the same fertilizer regimen, so no idea what's happening there. We have okra, of course, in both beds. This is like a bush, what is it, Blue Lake bush bean. So these are really starting to produce. I can probably actually start harvesting these bad boys. They are still blooming, so we'll get probably another week and a half of beans off of these guys, and then the same story, more cow peas are going to be planted in this space as well. This is another one of those camo squash, the vining type that's in the other bed. You can kind of see where it's putting out little tendrils here. Here is an icicle radish planted around the camo squash. Then we have a different type of bush bean that I don't know what it is. I have it inside, but I don't have it outside. I don't know, I can't remember what it is, but it's a flat type, and that one is a round type. So then we have green zebra zucchini, I believe is what that one is called. And there's a better representation of the icicle radish, so you can see there. So hopefully that helps ward off squash bugs, because they will completely wipe out your squash crop quickly if you're not able to control them. Cilantro, I have actually harvested a lot of this. We had chicken quesadilla tacos this week, so I kind of almost harvested this entire plant. But it's still doing pretty well. It hasn't tried to bolt yet. This is Calypso cilantro, so maybe it's slightly more heat tolerant. We'll see. This bed gets pretty blasted by the sun, so we'll see how tolerant it is as we get to the end of May and into June. We have candy cane chocolate cherry peppers here, and I've harvested a couple for various usage, and then that's a shishito pepper. Again, all of these sweet peppers are a bit behind compared to the hot peppers because of the nitrogen lock issue in these beds, but they are really starting to grow a lot better now. So hopefully they'll catch up in terms of production. But you can see more of the okra in this bed. And this bed is actually looking like it has healthier okra. So we will see what happens. Okra is one of our favorite garden crops to produce every year, so I'm really excited to start to eat all of the okra, probably starting at the end of June, beginning of July, I would say. That's whenever we start typically harvesting okra. All right, now we get over here into the corn. The corn is really going to start reaching the end of its life cycle soon, but we do have a few ears of corn growing. So you can see this one here, and I kind of felt it yesterday, and I could feel some kernels of corn. I don't know how big the cob is going to be because I've never grown this before, but you can see another one here, and maybe, oh yeah, here we go, another one here. So I'm not intentionally trying to grow the corn as, you know, like a food crop. It was more as a for funsies thing to see if I could. Maybe next year I'll try to be more intentional about it, but at least it wasn't a total failure. This is blue spice basil. I thought it was holy basil that I planted in here, but this is definitely blue spice because it has like a vanilla note that it gives off. And this one is my absolute favorite, so I'm glad that I have it. Then we have blue borage. This is actually about to bloom, so that'll be really pretty. And we have gypsy sunshine marigolds in these as well. Now, you might be saying to yourself that this garlic is looking a little sad and pathetic. What I am saying to myself is that this garlic is looking ready to harvest. This will be the other thing that the kids and I harvest tomorrow. This section is Inchelium. I can't remember which one this one is. This is music, and then this is another one that I can't remember the name of. I have it written down inside. So we're going to harvest each section, weigh it out, get it curing on the shelf, so on and repeat until we get to the end. The music is the only hardneck variety that I grew this year. The rest of them are soft necks. The cool thing about soft necks is you can braid them all together and have a cool garlic braid. So that'll be really fun. So yes, after these are harvested, we're gonna get more sunflowers in here. One of my favorite things every year is having this blooming sunflower wall in front of the greenhouse. So I'm really excited to kind of get that going and see those grow and bloom and make me all happy with their joyful sunflowery faces. Okay, the flower bed is also facing some issues. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat anything that's happening in my garden. I want you guys to see what a realistic garden looks like. I'm not trying to make it prettier than it is or anything like that. I want you to see an authentic garden from an imperfect gardener. One of the issues within the flower bed is powdery mildew. My zinnias get powdery mildew every year. I did a treatment of baking soda and water, and then I did a treatment of milk and water. I need to repeat the baking soda. I'm kind of waiting to see what the weather is going to do today. It seems to have slowed down the powdery mildew because it's not like normally by now all of the leaves would be brown and crusty and crunchy and super disgusting, and currently they're only a little bit disgusting. So it is better than normal, but it's not ideal. So I need to do another baking soda treatment, see if I can kind of extend the life of these guys a little while longer. I did also prune off any of the bigger blossoms the other day so that attention could be focused on growing new healthy leaves and making sure that these younger blooms weren't going to be infected by the powdery mildew as well. Down here in the snapdragon area. There's not a whole lot blooming at the moment, but I wanted to show you this Madam Butterfly. It's a white one, but look at the little flowers in it. They're so heckin' cute. And then this one will have the same kind of ruffly petal style compared to the other snapdragons there. So yeah, these are so cool. There's also, oh, that broke. I'm gonna go inside with that. There's also a different color, a lighter pink out here, that has the same petal style, so really cool. And then we have Strawberry Fields Gomphrena, these petunias that are kind of ruffly, more zinnias that have powdery mildew. We have this Echinacea, which I believe is the Paradiso mix, judging by the color of that kind of spent flower there. I removed the cilantro that was in the way because it was in the way and I couldn't access the things that I needed to access from this area. So I went ahead and I cut that down and got rid of it. Calendula, I need to come out here and deadhead. It looks kind of like an alien whenever it starts to form the seeds on it. So kind of fun to see it all alien and deformed, but I also like the pretty flowers, so I'll come out and deadhead these, and hopefully we get some more blooms out of that before it gets too hot and it fizzles away. But we have more zinnias. Okay, so this is like an icky bad powdery mildew. You can see how it gets crusty and brown and gross. But the new leaves look really good. So baking soda treatment on the way. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. So over here, this is my pride and joy for the week. This hollyhock is starting to bloom and it is so pretty. So this is a dark red, which means if that one blooms, which I doubt because it has rust really bad, it will be the jet black. But y'all look at this, it's so pretty. So pretty. Otherwise, we have the same situation going on with powdery mildew and petunias. But here's another snapdragon that has the super cool blossom type on it. So it's almost like a double head or something. These are the Madam Butterfly series, and they're so cool. All right, in here, I had already harvested the lettuce out last week whenever I showed you in the weekly update. I finally figured out what I'm gonna put in here, and I have pigeon peas inside, which are typically used in like Caribbean cooking. I am going to throw those in here and see if I can get some pigeon peas harvested off of here. So we shall see what happens with that. Of course, I'll keep you guys updated. I'll probably plant those the same time that I plant the cowpeas in that bed, so we can kind of keep consistent dates and, you know, tracking stuff. What I noticed whenever I walked out here to start filming this update is this. This is ginger. It has finally germinated. We have ginger. Ginger! So very excited. Turmeric has not. This is slower to sprout than ginger. So I don't expect anything from this for a little while. Hopefully it happens. If not, no harm, no foul. It was an experiment. This one also has ginger, and I don't think, yeah, this one hasn't germinated yet either, but we checked the roots in here together last week and they were fine. So hopefully soon we start seeing some ginger germinating in there. All right, now we get to the pepper green stalk. Oh, where do I begin with the pepper green stalk? These are dwarf varieties of tomatoes. There were 2 hornworms on here. One on that one and one on that one. It's been a whole battle. This tomato is getting ripe. This is the Firebird Sweet, but it has split very badly. So I'm probably just going to pull it off and throw it in the garbage. I'm also battling spider mites on the dwarf tomatoes. You can see this one is horribly affected. And most of the peppers are doing phenomenally. They're very healthy. This guy This guy is starting to ripen. This is a Arapaho cayenne. But I had a hornworm on this guy that I didn't catch, and it just decimated this plant. Hopefully it is able to come back from the damage, but I wouldn't be surprised if it just doesn't pull through. The eggplants are doing okay. This is not the best home for them if you're considering planting eggplant in a green stock, and I think it's because they require so many more nutrients than peppers. Peppers you can grow in a relatively small-ish space. It does have a few eggplants on it, but you can see it's just like, you know, not super healthy looking. It could also have a spider mite problem, judging by the speckling. It doesn't really feel sandy, but could still have a problem. The notches that you see on this pepper plant are from leaf cutter bees, and they really love my pepper leaves. I'm guessing it's like a nice tender leaf for them to come cut. I'm perfectly content with them coming to, you know, collect leaves from my plants. They don't do any other damage. They don't eat the fruits or anything. And I believe they're an important pollinator, so I don't mind sharing my leaves with them. But you can see we do have peppers kind of growing all over, at least for the, you know, we do have peppers growing all over. So while some of the other crops aren't looking great, the peppers are. All right, now we are into the strawberries. This was around the time of year last year when I planted the strawberries from bare root, and in all honesty, that is the wrong time to plant strawberries in Texas, but it kind of paid off. We got a lot of fresh strawberries this year from these, and there you can see we still have a few babies out here growing. So what we are looking at now, because we're not really getting a whole lot of fruit from it anymore, is keeping it alive and fertilized through the winter into next spring again. As we have runners that run off and kind of deposit themselves, I'll try to anchor them into the empty pockets, so hopefully we can fill this thing up all the way, and then next year have even more strawberries. This is getting fertilized bi-weekly with Neptune's Harvest liquid fertilizer. As it warms up, the idea is that this tree here, because it's pretty full, helps keep it pretty shaded for most of the day. Now it does get the early morning sun as it pops up over the fence over there, but once the sun is kind of in the tree, so to speak, this is pretty shaded until the sun is way up in the sky, and then it only gets 2 to 3 hours of sun in the full summer, which really helps to kind of keep it alive in the hottest months so that we can sort of transition it into overwintering until the next spring. So that's the plan. It worked last year, so we're just gonna, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Again, not much has changed with the lime tree. It is looking a lot healthier than it was. I don't know if it's going to bloom and set fruit this year or not. Right now, I'm just trying to keep it healthy and let it focus on getting some good healthy leaves and figuring out where I'm going to store it in the winter, because it didn't like its home last winter. Although we do have some really big, what is this, Momolo basil? Yeah. So we have some good looking basil in here. We have some lime basil, volunteer of some sort, probably Persian. So basil and limes together, they can be friends. Okay, so this is the herb green stalk. What is growing in here is tea and or medicinal herbs of all kinds. We have chamomile here. This will not last in the heat of the summer. You can see where it's already starting to kind of try to die off. So that's just something that I let happen every year. It's pretty easy to grow, so no big deal. I just come off and I harvest these little flowers and I have them dehydrating on a tray inside. And then I just add them to my jar of chamomile flowers to use for tea. We have lavender down here, and it's starting to get some more flower spikes. I also snip those off whenever they're fully blooming and dry them inside. They go in the same jar because I like to drink them in a tea together. Then we have Mondavian Dragon Balm here. This is actually looking really good. This is a pollinator plant. As far as I'm aware, it's not a tea or medicinal herb, but pollinators love it. And I'm all about helping the pollinators, so that's why that one is in there. We have a bronze fennel here and a volunteer Persian basil here. So we'll see how well those two continue to grow together. So far, so good. I'll remove the Persian basil if the bronze fennel starts impeding the growth of it. This is an ornamental oregano, and really I only have this in here for fun because it looks really cool. But it does smell and taste like regular oregano, so you could use it that way. It's just a more ornamental variety compared to the other ones that are over in the tomato patch. Up here we have anise hyssop, and these are looking pretty good. These are a good tea. These are a good tea flower and a good pollinator flower. Then over here we have regular hyssop, then we have rue down here. This one is another one. This one is for swallowtails if they are attracted to it. Tarragon, marshmallow. Hopefully that flowers. I thought that was a second year flowering plant, but it's sure tall, so maybe we'll get some flowers on it. But overall, this is looking really good. It certainly adds a lot of life to the rest of the garden. Hopefully it, you know, continues to look that way through the summer as it gets super hot and gross out. So we'll see. You can see the flowers in here are doing really well. There are a couple of rogue strawberry plants. They're not as well grown as those in there, but they're still kicking. So there we go. All right, I'll give you guys a quick update. Yellow onions that were harvested. This side was the control, if you didn't catch the video. This side was the experiment where we did the spooning. These are bigger. There's fewer onions and it was a larger weight. So overall, these are bigger. I don't know if that means spooning works. We're gonna do the experiment one more season to determine for sure. And then we have one Inchellium garlic that was harvested because we just wanted to see. And then the seeds that I started last week, most of them have germinated, so that's really exciting. So we will have some more flowers ready to go in the flower beds. But that is a look at the garden this week for May the 23rd. While we are facing quite the pest pressure and a little bit of disease pressure, overall there's still a ton of food growing and a ton of life happening. So very happy with the garden so far. All right, but that's all I have for this week's weekly update. If you want to continue to see how this garden grows and changes from week to week, please like, subscribe, and comment. Otherwise, until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye.